My son, my daughter, stop for a moment. I know that you are trying to continue with your day while carrying inside you a question. You wake up, answer messages, work, solve problems, take care of people, pay bills, and, on the outside, you seem to be carrying on normally. But when silence comes, there is a feeling that is difficult to explain. Why does it seem that I am so far from God? Maybe you prayed yesterday. Maybe you asked for guidance. Maybe you closed your eyes and said, Lord, if you are with me, show me. And then you opened your eyes, and apparently nothing changed. My son, my daughter, you are looking for a presence that has never stopped being there. You are looking for a sign in the sky, while ignoring the small light that still remains lit inside your heart. You are looking for a door, while God first works on the person who will walk through that door. And there is something you need to understand before continuing. You do not need to find God as though he was something that had been lost. I have never been far from you. Scripture says, in him we live, and move, and have our being. It is not merely a beautiful phrase. It is a truth that confronts one of the most painful lies that fear can tell, that you are alone. You may not perceive my presence. You may go through a season in which my answers seem silent. You may look at your life and see only closed doors, but an absence of perception does not mean an absence of presence. And perhaps this is where true transformation begins. You have spent so much time trying to change what is outside that perhaps you have forgotten to observe what is happening within. When fear dominates your mind, every possibility seems like a threat. When insecurity speaks louder, an opportunity seems dangerous. When you believe that you are not enough, even an open door can seem too large to walk through. But I want to ask you a question. What if the problem is not the lack of possibilities, but what you have learned to see? Think about that message that arrives on your phone saying only, "We need to talk." Your mind creates 10 stories. You suffer before the event. You fear before the answer. You cry over a future that has not yet happened. My son, my daughter, how many times have you done this to yourself? Today, I do not want to speak only about what you desire to receive. I want to speak about who you are becoming while you wait. And if you truly want to enter into this reflection with me, do one thing now. Write in the comments, Lord, open my eyes to what I still cannot see. Write it as a prayer. Leave your like if you want this message to reach someone going through a season where it seems there is no way out. C.S. Lewis wrote, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And there is something deeply connected to this. When the ego believes it needs to control everything, it turns life into a permanent battle. But when you trust God, you don't need all the answers in order to keep walking. You do not need to see the entire path. You only need to recognize the next light. And perhaps that light is already shining. Inside you there is an awareness that your story does not end with what your eyes are able to see today. There is a hunger for something greater, a restlessness that money cannot resolve, a question that no amount of a recognition can silence. Perhaps you have called it anxiety. Perhaps you have called it emptiness. But perhaps, at certain moments, it is also your heart remembering that you were created for something greater than simply surviving. This is where we need to move forward carefully. Christian faith is not a technique for controlling God. It is a relationship of trust with the one who knows what we still cannot see. And perhaps the greatest discovery of this journey is precisely this. You do not need to control every possibility in order to trust the one who knows then all. My son, my daughter, now I want you to look at your life in a different way. You are accustomed to believing only in what you are able to see. If the account is empty, you say, there is no provision. If the answer did not come, you decide, God is not doing anything. If the door closed, you think, there is no path anymore. If the person left, you conclude, I lost. But you are forgetting something. Your eyes can see the result, but they cannot see all the processes that lead to it. A buried seed looks dead. You look at the soil and see nothing, but underneath it, the root is breaking through. Life is beginning. What looks like silence on the surface may hide movement in the depths. And how many times have you done exactly the opposite? You looked at silence and called it abandonment. You interpreted the absence of evidence as evidence of absence. But I want to teach you to wait without losing your faith. When you look at a situation through fear, your mind quickly turns a possibility into a sentence. You think, this will never change, but I want to teach you to wait without losing your faith. When you look at a situation through fear, your mind quickly turns a possibility into a sentence. You think, this will never change. My life will always be like this. And then a temporary circumstance begins to take the place of a permanent truth. My son, my daughter, do not turn the chapter you are living into the title of your story. You are going through a page. You are not seeing the entire book. This is where the idea of consciousness becomes so important. You cannot control everything with your mind, and there is more reality before you than what your fear allows you to see. C.S. Lewis wrote, "Difficulties often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." It does not mean that every kind of suffering is automatically good. It does not mean God desires your pain. It means that no season needs to be wasted. You can learn in wilderness. You can discover your true strength after a loss. You can develop discernment precisely because a disappointment revealed what you could not perceive before. Remember Elijah. He sought my presence in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire. But my voice was not in those things. Then came a gentle breeze, and it was there he perceived me. How many times do you look for God only in the extraordinary? You wait for an impossible coincidence, a spectacular event, an answer that eliminates all doubts. Meanwhile, I may be speaking through a quiet conviction, through a passage of scripture, through that inner uneasiness that makes you stop before making a decision. Not everything that happens around you is a supernatural message, but not everything needs to be extraordinary to produce transformation. Learn to discern, because there is a difference between desperately looking for signs and learning to recognize my direction. And now I want you to think about a specific situation in your life, the one you have been trying to control, the one about which you ask every day, when is it going to happen? When will I receive my answer? Or when will my life finally change? Now, for a few seconds, change the question. Instead of, when is God going to do something? Ask, what might God be forming in me while I wait? Perhaps this question will open a door you had not yet noticed, because some changes begin long before they appear on the outside. First, the thought changes. Then, the posture changes. Then, the decision changes. Then, the path changes. And one day you look back and realize the transformation began long before you could see it. My son, my daughter, do not be afraid of what you still cannot see. You do not need to know all the possibilities. You need to trust me with the next step. My son, my daughter, there is something you need to see now. Have you noticed that some situations seem to change their appearance, but never truly change? You change jobs and encounter the same conflicts. You change relationships and feel the same abandonment again. You start a project, and when obstacles appear, that old voice returns. You won't make it. This is not for you. Or, you always end up giving up. And without realizing it, you begin walking the same path again. Then you look at your life and ask, why does this always happen to me? But perhaps there is an even deeper question. What is inside me that keeps responding to situations in the same way? My son, my daughter, I am not saying that everything that happened to you was caused by your thoughts. There are losses you did not choose. There are injustices that were not your fault. There are people who hurt you because of their own choices. Do not carry the guilt on your shoulders. But there is one part of your story for which you can begin to take responsibility. The way you respond to what happens. Imagine someone who spent years believing they will be abandoned. When someone approaches, they become afraid. When the person takes a while to respond, they imagine rejection. When they notice distance, they begin to defend themselves. Perhaps they become cold or demand too much. Perhaps they withdraw first, so they will not be abandoned later. And finally, the relationship ends. Then that person says, I knew it. No one stays. But notice what happened. The belief created a lens. The lens influenced the interpretation. The interpretation influenced the behavior. And the behavior helped produce a result that seemed to confirm the original belief. This is the invisible pattern. That is why Paul wrote in Romans 12 about transformation through the renewing of the mind. It is allowing God to transform how you see the world. C.S. Lewis understood this inner battle. He speaks about how what we think and desire repeatedly participates in shaping who we become. And that is precisely why you need to observe your thoughts without simply believing every one of them. When your mind says, there is no way out, ask, is this a fact, or is this my fear speaking? When it says, I will never prosper, ask, is this an eternal truth, or a conclusion based on experiences I have lived through so far? When it says, God has forgotten me, return to the word, because feelings are real. But feelings are not necessarily truths. You can feel abandoned and still not be abandoned. You can feel there is no path and still have a path that you cannot see. My son, my daughter, do not turn what you feel into a prophecy about your future. You are not your fear. You are not your failure. You are not the rejection you experienced. You are not the door that closed. You are someone who is still being formed. So, today, do something different. When fear appears, do not respond automatically. Stop, breathe, pray, ask, Lord, how do you want me to respond to this? Perhaps the circumstance will not change immediately, but you will have changed within it. And sometimes, that is exactly where a new story begins. Because when you stop responding the way you always have, you interrupt the cycle that has always produced the same results. My son, my daughter, perhaps you do not need a different life to begin living differently. Perhaps you simply need a new response to an old situation. And that small choice can create space for something you still cannot imagine. You want answers. You want to know when, how, and why. Many times, there is a silent need. Lord, let me know so I can control what comes next. But listen carefully. You were not created to control the future. You were called to walk with me through it. There is an enormous difference. When you try to control everything, your mind remains permanently on alert. You need to predict every possibility, anticipate every problem, and calculate every risk. And little by little, you begin to live a life that is never in the present. You are always in tomorrow. What if I lose? What if I'm abandoned? Or, what if the money runs out? My son, my daughter, notice this. Many of the sufferings you experience today are not happening in the present. They are happening within futures that your mind has imagined. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means learning to distinguish prudence from fear. Prudence observes. Fear invents scenarios and reacts to them. That is why I said, do not worry about tomorrow. Not because tomorrow does not matter, but because you were not given grace to live all the days at once. The grace for tomorrow will come when tomorrow arrives. Today, you have received grace for today. You only need to take the next step faithfully. This is also where we need to properly understand what so many people call manifestation. You can deeply desire something. You can set goals. You can work, pray, and you can believe. But that does not turn God into a machine that receives thoughts and delivers results. Faith is not a tool for controlling heaven. Faith is enough trust to keep walking, even when you cannot see the entire path. C.S. Lewis wrote, "Faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted, in spite of your changing moods, because there will be days when you feel faith, and there will be days when you feel only exhaustion. There will be mornings when everything seems possible, and there will be nights when you wonder whether any hope still exists. Do not build your relationship with me solely upon what you feel. Build it upon what you know from my word. When you cannot see, trust. When you do not understand, remain. When the door closes, do not immediately conclude the story has ended. Ask, Lord, is there something you want to teach me before I try to open this door again? Perhaps there is. Maybe you are asking for a change in circumstances when I am first working on your identity. Maybe you are asking for abundance while you still need to learn responsibility. Asking for a new relationship while you still need to learn how to set boundaries. Asking for an opportunity while you need to develop a skill. Asking for direction while you need to learn silence. Not every waiting season is a punishment. Not every delay is a rejection. And not every closed door is a defeat. Sometimes what you call an obstacle is precisely what is preventing you from entering a place you are not yet prepared to inhabit. My son, my daughter, trust the process without turning the process into an idol. Do not worship the waiting. Do not glorify pain. Do not seek suffering to prove your faith. Simply understand that, even in seasons you would not have chosen, I can continue forming something within you. And here is the question I want to leave engraved upon your heart. If you knew that you did not need to control the outcome, what decision would you make today with greater freedom? Think about that. Perhaps you would finally forgive. Perhaps you would have the courage to say no. Perhaps you would start that project. Perhaps you would seek help. Perhaps you would stop chasing someone who never chose to walk beside you. Perhaps you would simply rest. Because true trust does not mean passivity. It means acting without carrying the burden of believing that everything depends exclusively on you. You do your part. I remain God. And perhaps this is exactly where your perception begins to expand. My son, my daughter, we have reached the point where everything we have discussed needs to stop being merely an idea and become a choice. You began this journey looking for an answer. Perhaps you were trying to understand why some things do not change, why certain doors remain closed, why your prayers seem to take so long, why it seems that you are exactly where you were before. But now I want you to realize something. Perhaps you are not in the same place. Perhaps you are simply looking at your life through the same lenses. You look at what is still missing and fail to notice what has already been transformed. You look at the delay and fail to notice the maturity that developed within you during the waiting. You wanted an immediate answer. I was forming discernment. You wanted a path without obstacles. I was strengthening your steps. My son, my daughter, not everything that appears to be still is actually still. There is work that happens in silence. There is growth that cannot be perceived immediately. There is a root that needs to deepen before any fruit can appear. Therefore, do not allow your current moment to determine what you believe about your future. Your situation is real, but it is not eternal. Your pain is real, but it does not need to become your identity. Your fear is real, but it does not have to decide your next steps. I am still here, and now you need to make a choice. Not the choice to control every circumstance, but the choice to trust me even when you still do not have all the answers. This is the faith that matures. It is easy to trust when you already know the outcome. It is difficult to keep walking when there is still fog. But that is exactly how so many men and women in Scripture walked. Moses moved forward before the sea. Peter stepped out of the boat before knowing how his feet would remain upon the water. They did not have absolute control over what would happen. They had a word, and they had to decide whether they would trust it. And perhaps today you are standing before your own sea. You look ahead and cannot see a passage. You look behind and see what you can no longer recover. And then you think, Lord, what do I do now? I say, take only the next step, because you are trying to see the entire road, when I am only asking you to trust the light sufficient for the step that is before you. Whatever the next step may be, do not take it governed by desperation. Pray, examine, seek the word, and then walk. Faith means seeing reality without allowing it to become greater than God. Abandon the need to interpret every event as proof. God is against you. A rejection does not mean you have been rejected by me. A loss does not mean you have lost your purpose. And a difficult day does not mean that I have stopped walking beside you. My son, my daughter, you need to remember who you are before God. You are not merely what happened to you. You are not the opinion of the person who abandoned you. You are not the mistake you made. You are not the diagnosis you received. You are not the difficult season you are going through. Your identity cannot remain chained to your circumstances. Once you understand this, you begin to see possibilities and you stop allowing fear to control you. You begin to respond instead of reacting. You begin to discern instead of assuming. You begin to walk instead of remaining paralyzed. Then you realize something you may have been looking for. From the very beginning, the transformation began before the external change appeared. It was within you. It was silent. It was happening while you thought that nothing was happening. Place your hand over your heart for a few seconds. Breathe deeply and say it. Jesus, I do not need to see everything in order to trust you. Repeat it. If this sentence represents what you desire to live from this day forward, write in the comments, I trust even without seeing. Perhaps someone will read your comment at the exact moment they are thinking about giving up. If this message spoke to you, leave your like and share. Remember, stop, breathe, trust. You are not alone. You do not need to carry tomorrow before tomorrow arrives. Today's grace is enough for today's step. And if tomorrow brings a new battle, there will be grace for tomorrow. If brings a new decision, there will be wisdom to seek. Because I did not promise that you would never face valleys. I promised that I would be with you in the valley. So lift your head, my son, my daughter, take the next step. I will be with you until the end.